This video is part of the lecture Plant Breeding in a Modern World in the scope of the course Applied Genetics at the University of Ostrava. Phenotypic variance of quantitative traits is the sum of their genetic and environmental variance. Both of these variance components can be estimated by controlling for the environment of growth or for the genetic composition of the population. If we know what part of the phenotypic variation is actual genetic variation, then we can calculate the broad sense heritability, which is simply the amount of genetic variation relative to the total phenotypic variation in the population. Broad sense heritability is a parameter that varies between 0 and 1. If its value is close to 0, then the studied trait has no heritability and all phenotypic variation we observe is due to environmental variance. On the contrary, if broad sense heritability is approaching 1, then almost all of the phenotypic variance we observe in the population is due to genetic differences between the individuals. A very important thing to remember about heritability is that this is a parameter that is measured for a population. So if broad sense heritability for carrot weight is 0.7, this does not mean that if we look at one individual carrot, 70% of its weight will be determined by its genes and 30% by the environment of growth. Heritability simply cannot tell us that. What heritability tells us is that if we look at the entire population of carrots in the field, among all the phenotypic differences we observe between individuals, about 70% of them will be due to genetic variation between individual carrots. So heritability is not very helpful if we are interested in the precise genetic determinism of a trait or its inheritance, but it can help us make some predictions on the population level. And this is precisely the information plant breeders need. So a heritability of a trait of 70% means that most of the phenotypic variation in the population is heritable, and if mass selection is applied, it will result in a permanent change on the trait under artificial selection. On the other hand, if heritability is low, it means that most of the variation we observe in the population is due to microenvironmental differences between the individuals. In this case, applying mass selection to improve the trait value will have little to no effect, and instead, a more efficient way to modify the trait is to grow the plant in appropriate environmental conditions.